I'm Elias Ahonen, and I'm Finnish-Canadian, and I'm based in Dubai, so I had a nice long flight over, and I'm working on my PhD currently on cryptocurrency, the law of cryptocurrency and blockchain, and the conflict that I believe is happening or will happen with this idea of international law as it exists, as it is based on national sovereignty and the ability to act as a nation, and the idea of blockchain, the fact that individuals are able to control private keys that no authority can access. Because if we look at the past, and I'll start with where I come from on this. In 2013, I was 18, and I was studying political science. And we learned about the Leviathan and these different old concepts of where government comes from, where authority comes from, how the state and the government is formed, and this idea that the masses of people can come together and make policy and act and form law and courts. And it fundamentally is based on this idea that the state and the majority of people are able to, if they decide that someone has money and they shouldn't have the money by a court order or however they make that decision, they can freeze their bank accounts. They can go into your backyard with metal detectors and look for the gold. When it comes to Bitcoin, it can literally be in your head. If you know a string of numbers, no authority on earth can take that. And fundamentally, I found that that is a revolutionary concept, not necessarily from any ideological perspective, but just by fact that this is possible, that technology has come to the point that an individual's sovereignty, so to say, parallels and conflicts directly with that of the state. So, I don't know are we on the main slide now? I don't know how this, can you hear me now? All right. Oh, shit. Okay, so, I'm just wondering, can we get the next slide? How does this work? Okay, can we full screen this or no? I'll leave it like that. Okay, so anyway, I've written 2 books, one of them about physical Bitcoins, and another about the history of the Bitcoin movement. And that comes from the idea that this movement and story of Bitcoin is difficult to understand for many. It's something that is difficult to grasp, and many people would consider it as this, technology that is, is in the dark web, and there's all this stuff going on, and no one understands it. So anyway, I'll leave that introduction behind, but I'll get into silver. So material culture is this idea that you can study the images and art of any movement to understand the philosophy and the ideas of the people in that time and place. And if we look at silver coins today, as we see in the hallway, in the stores outside there, in the little booths that is, we see images that make us think of freedom, liberty, strength, independence. There's buffaloes, there's eagles, there's all these kinds of images that make us believe in this kind of individual sovereignty, if you will. And historically, coins have always had this image with them, this idea of economic power and the collective ideology of the people using them. And in a way, it carries that flame of this idea that they represent, that is the individual freedom to make transactions, to buy, to act. And I wanted to look at this little chart. We look at gold, and we can use the same gold one for silver. It's more or less similar in that front. We have fiat, the US dollar, for example, and crypto, specifically Bitcoin in this case. And we can ask the question, what is money? And that's a very good question. Everyone might have a different definition. Historically, money has been many things. It's been commodities, It's been precious metals, it's been seashells, salt, anything that more or less is useful, is easily exchangeable. 1 gram of silver or gold is 1 gram of silver or gold anywhere. Same with a pound of salt, or a bushel of barley, or however you like it. And if you look at these different aspects of money, so fungibility, it's interchangeable. Consumable, sometimes it's, I suppose, a good thing because that's an ultimate benefit. None of these are consumable. All of them are portable, more or less. The security at the airport might like me if I came out with 20 kilos of gold. Durable, all of them are fairly durable. Whether or not inflation makes it less durable, that's another question. Divisible, all of them are divisible. Again, the big 100-ounce gold bar is more difficult to divide than a Bitcoin, which comes into 100 million pieces. Secure, more or less, yes. And easily transactable, gold is a bit difficult there. Scarce, well, Bitcoin, we know exactly how scarce it is. Gold, silver, we know they're scarce. Exactly how scarce? Well, the supply is increasing. And then we have the questions of sovereignty, decentralization, and programmability. Now, if we look at gold or silver, it's none of those things. Fiat is, government issued. Some people would like that. I think many of the room might not like that, as we heard Patrick mention. And then there's the decentralization aspect. We could argue that gold is fairly decentralized because it's found all over the world. But at the end of the day, there are very large companies and policymakers controlling a lot of what's going on there. Whereas with Bitcoin, that's not necessarily the case, at least yet, but there is some discussion there. And then we have the programmability aspect, which is quite unique on Bitcoin. So we can say that Bitcoin fulfills many of these criteria of what is money, what can be considered money or value, to, so to say, compete with the idea when it comes to fiat or precious metals. Now, we look at physical Bitcoin. My first book was about physical Bitcoin, and the way I got involved with that was because I found the Bitcoin space to be so complex. I couldn't understand what people were writing because I wasn't a technical person, and people were almost writing like computer science text about it back in 2013, 2012. And I found people creating and trading these physical coins. And I found that this was a way that I could actually hold Bitcoin without having it in a wallet, without having it on a computer, that is. And the way it works is this coin here, for example. It says 0.1 BTC, Bitcoin, and on the other side, I don't have that picture up there, but there's a sticker. And if you peel that sticker, there is a hologram. The sticker is a hologram, and if you peel that hologram sticker, there's a private key. So the Bitcoin is actually inside that coin, and it was made as an educational tool to explain, here's a Bitcoin, I control the private key. If I give it to you, I no longer control the private key. And that's fundamentally how Bitcoin works on the blockchain. It's just a physical manifestation of that. Now, if we look at this image, and if we think about this material culture angle, what does the image represent? What is the ideology of Bitcoiners early in 2013 when this coin was minted and sold? And that's a burning bank with people using chains, which symbolize blockchains, to burn down the pillars of the burning bank. And these bankers are crying with worthless bags of paper money at the steps of this grand old institution as the people are holding Bitcoin as a savior. Now, I can't tell you whether that's the correct interpretation of what Bitcoin will be or will not, but I can say that that is how it was seen in those early days, and that comes from somewhere. Now, here's a couple more pictures of physical Bitcoins and the things they symbolize. Because it's one thing for me to tell you what Bitcoin is or what it means. It's another to show the art from those early couple years. What kinds of people rallied around it? What did they see in it? And might we see the same things? Were they right or were they wrong? There's a picture of the world showing that this is something that's cross-border. There's an idea of a dove and a rising sun symbolizing freedom. There's a bull for bull markets. And we have an anonymous person, which stands for anonymous. Also Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the creator of Bitcoin, who no one knows who he was, he or she. Now, I wanted to show you an example. This here, I don't know if you can see it well, but this is a 1 ounce silver coin. On one side, it has a B for Bitcoin. It says 1 Bitcoin on it. And on the other end, there's that hologram that I mentioned. And right here, if we look at the, you won't be able to see it, but there is actually those first 1AGUUE7 written on it. And that's the public key. And if I was to peel this sticker, I would find the private key to 1 Bitcoin. That means that this silver coin right now holds 1 Bitcoin worth $26,000. I'm going to keep it here. But what's interesting is that when it was sold in 2013, the silver was around $27 worth of silver, 1 ounce, and the Bitcoin was around $27. Well, maybe it was 100. It's not that, doesn't matter that much because now it's $27,000. So theoretically, you did 0x on the silver, but the Bitcoin went up 1,000x. Now, I can't say that that's going to happen again. I myself am happy to hold it. And that is the magic of physical Bitcoins. Now, I wanted to introduce a little bit further about Bitcoin itself. How many of you know about Bitcoin, how it functions? Or I should ask, how many don't know how it functions? There's a couple. So the basic points is that it was created again by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. And no one knows who, well, maybe 2008, but it came out, and no one knows who that person is. He released it to this mailing list of cypherpunks, and this was a group of, we could say, anarchist programmers who wanted to do away with the state by replacing human government with a computer code to be more just or to be more predictable, whatever that means. And a part of that was that they needed a currency, a measure of value, something to transact that could be, 1, transacted by computers, and 2, not controlled by a state and not be able to stop by a state. And it was a goal of this ideological group for decades to have this kind of digital currency. And with Bitcoin, that vision came to light. Now, the way Bitcoin functions is it's mined, and the mining happens through computers. And at first it was normal computers. Now we have very specialized, high-powered servers, we can say, ASICs as we call them, that generate Bitcoin by effectively calculating the Bitcoin blockchain and confirming it. So there's millions of computers all over the world checking where each Bitcoin is every hour, 6 times an hour approximately. And they're all agreeing to it effectively. And for essentially checking and verifying and scrutinizing this account, they have a chance of receiving more Bitcoin as it's created. Now, like precious metals, in theory, the maximum amount of Bitcoin that can exist is limited. We don't exactly know how much precious metals there are in the world, and there's more on asteroids, but with Bitcoin, there can only be 21 million coins. So in my pocket, I have 1/21 millionth of all Bitcoin. And it's actually less than that because up to 1/3 is considered lost forever because people have lost their private keys early on when Bitcoin wasn't very valuable. Now, all of the Bitcoin in circulation right now is 19.5 million Bitcoins. So that means out of 21 million Bitcoins, there's only 1.5 that remain to be mined. And after that, it's gone forever. Now, the mining will still continue for a long time because there's a system of halving the mining of what's found. And it's the same idea as if you have a gold mine. And there's a lot of gold in the surface. It's easy to get. You might be getting 100 ounces a week. And after you've dug more, you're only finding 50 ounces a week. And after that, there's only 25, and so on and so forth. With Bitcoin, that happens every 4 years. So every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin generated every hour gets halved. Before it was 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes, then 25, then 12.5, onwards and onwards, until theoretically the last 100 millionth of a Bitcoin is mined in sometime in, was it 2150 something. Now, I think we can get that slide back up there, so I remember where we are, but I think I was showing you the different, I think we gotta go back, just the different milestones of prices. 2013, we hit $1,000 a Bitcoin, then up to $17,000, and recently we had an even higher high, and now we're, again, little around half that. When we look at the market cap, so all of Bitcoin right now is about half a trillion dollars, about a third of the whole market cap of silver, and somewhere around 1/10 of the market cap of, smaller amount of the market cap of gold. And that newspaper article that I show there, that's actually the day Bitcoin was launched. And that gives us a clue of this idea of what Bitcoin was. It's the London Times newspaper, and it's an article about Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel announcing a bailout right around the 2008 financial crisis. And that article's headline was actually embedded in the first block, in the very first implementation or transaction of Bitcoin. So it seemed to be that Bitcoin was a protest against this idea of endless inflation, endless creation of money. That seems to have been the ideology. Again, it might be that other ideologies adopt Bitcoin, but this is where it came from, which I think is very interesting. Now, very quickly, we can look at a few different waves of adoption. First, it was the techie libertarians that felt that the system is broken, we need a new thing. And that was really the first people that came onto Bitcoin. And then you had activists. Some of you are familiar with WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks actually started accepting Bitcoin donations when the US government put blocks on all their bank accounts and credit cards. And they got Bitcoin donations, and those rose up to tens of millions of dollars, and I think they're still funding themselves to this day, partly because of those Bitcoin donations. Then we had precious metals investors come onto Bitcoin, and they started to believe that, Bitcoin is like digital gold. It's this limited unit that you can transfer between computers that is, again, limited. It has those same kinds of characteristics. That became a leading narrative of what Bitcoin is, what it stands for. And then that brought business types, it brought speculators of all types. Businesses grew around it, and recently we had artists join the movement through ordinals. Ordinals are a recent innovation which made it possible to actually take images and put them onto the Bitcoin blockchain, which is interesting because every transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain is permanent. That means that even though it's anonymous, that Bitcoin accounts are not named, they're visible forever. Just like I showed you there, the public key was public. You could in fact see exactly how much Bitcoin was in there. So if I took a piece of art and I put it on the Bitcoin blockchain, it's like etching it into this collective DNA of the internet, where it's confirmed and stored by millions of computers. And that Bitcoin innovation, it brought many other things. As Patrick mentioned, this is about Bitcoin, not about all the altcoins. But I want to mention that very briefly, that this movement expanded very quickly. We had Ethereum, which was a different type of cryptocurrency with a slightly different philosophy. And that made possible innovations around creating tokens, and companies tried to raise funding with tokens. We had the NFT boom, where we had people posting, putting pictures of monkeys on the blockchain and selling them for millions of dollars. We have DAOs, which is a big part of my research, decentralized autonomous organizations. The idea that we can create governance structures on the blockchain without necessarily a legal entity or a national system, so to say, a decentralized grassroots organizations of all types. And then this idea of the metaverse, whatever that means. Most people don't agree. I want to just, again, highlight the difference between this news article here, and this is actually from my recent book, Blockland, but that's a election poster back from the early 20th century. here in the US of this idea of a return to the gold standard, a view that if we return to this gold standard where we have real value that is not fiat, then we can have wealth. And Bitcoin is almost an echo of that over 100 years later. Now, before I'll open up to questions, I think, briefly, but I just wanted to show again this picture of this vision of this burning bank and this destruction of the new old system and this creation of a new system. And its other side, another coin that I think is very curious, because it's a silver coin with a Bitcoin theme, but it was actually done to protest Bitcoin. It says paradigm failure. If you don't hold it, you can't own it. And this is fake and the silver is better. And you can take whichever view you like. And I think we have maybe time for some brief questions. I'll let Patrick take care of that. He walked outside. Well, does someone have a mic that can go around? So, questions?
Start right in the front because you're easy, right here.
My quick question is, now that BlackRock and Blackwater are getting all involved with this kind of thing, how do you think it's going to turn, and what are they going to actually do with this? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, my bad, y'all. Okay, so I'm just wondering what's going to happen when BlackRock takes or tries to take over this, and Blackstone, and they're buying a bunch of this cryptocurrency.
So the question was regarding BlackRock and companies coming and buying a bunch of Bitcoin. I think what you're talking about is institutional adoption here. I'll let Elias answer that.
Certainly, and as you mentioned first, Blackwater I don't know about, but BlackRock, it's the largest investor in the world as far as I know, and runs massive ETF funds. What they do is, I believe they have around 500 something ETF exchange traded funds, and they have a track record of getting almost every single one of their ETF fund application approved by the government regulators. And the track record specifically is that they've had one rejection in their entire history and over 400 or 500 acceptances. So they have formally applied to do a Bitcoin ETF, and what that means is that anyone will be able to trade Bitcoin at spot on the stock market or through the stock market, the system you trade on the stock market with, but with ETFs. And the interesting thing is that when gold, the first ETF for gold came about, I want to say it was the SPDR Gold Trust or something along those lines. I don't remember which year, but was it early 2000s, 2004? The gold price went up over the next decade. Now, whether or not there's a correlation, I can't say, but it certainly made the market more efficient. And once, and I want to say once because I think it's more or less certain, this gets accepted and live, I think we're going to see a huge increase in Bitcoin trading volume, generally speaking, worldwide.
Okay, we got another question right back here.
Elias, I've been trying to get educated about these things, and I'm still pretty clueless, but what do you think of Hedera hash graph technology, which is apparently light years faster than blockchain technology? And apparently on the platform, the Hedera platform, you can launch countless numbers of Bitcoin equivalents, which have that scarcity built into them.
So I don't know about Hashgraph specifically enough to comment, but of course, we can launch a StockPulse token today, and we can give every single one of you a digital StockPulse token, and we can put it on. We can make the StockPulse chain, or we can put it on Ethereum, or we could even put it on Bitcoin. But would that have any value? For StockPulse, I would say, of course, it would have a lot of value, but it's a matter of supply and demand. And would people outside of this community want to be buying them? Would that where would that value and scarcity? I mean, the scarcity is there. I mean, I can make a piece of art and limit it to 10, and I can sell it. And actually, the encyclopedia that I mentioned of these physical Bitcoins, we have a special edition of those, 100 copies. And they're going to be available this weekend only, I believe. They're all signed. They've got a private key behind them, actually, and a hologram and a certificate, and that's limited to 100. That's a scarce thing in itself. So there's a scarcity there, but just because you make a token that's scarce, it doesn't necessarily by itself give it value. And I think we've seen that with tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is the first digital currency, and it's not broken yet. And by the general laws of how things work, more or less, I find that at the end of the day, the brand is very powerful, and it would take a lot of work to eclipse that, and even more work to make it go away completely, if that answers your question.
Elias, we have like 70 questions out here. There's no way we're going to get to all of you. So Elias, you pick the next one.
Pick the next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we'll go with, go to the back. How about you go to the back and then to the right and get the first guy you find.
Hey, how's it going? I just had a question about the initial coin that you addressed, because you said it was a coin on one side, but yet if you had like this like a sticker or whatever, and you pulled off the sticker, and then you had that private key. My issue is that if you were to go over and receive, let's just say you and I are conducting business, whatever, and I gave you that coin, and then you took the sticker off, which would then expose the private key. Once you have that key and then you input that key into your wallet, you then have that Bitcoin. You can't reuse that coin. Is that true?
Correct. So it's a one-use thing. It's like a safety deposit box, and it's got a seal on it. And if you open that, then you can take everything that's in it. It's a one-use. It's a curiosity at the end of the day.
Well, I want to add I would hate to argue with you on that. I won't argue with you on that, but I will say the private key is what controls your ability to spend, right? That's all it does. So if you peel it off, you have the private key and you still have the public key.
Sure.
It can still function as a wallet. It's just no longer secure because you've now peeled it. You still have the public key and the private key. You can send Bitcoin to it. You can send Bitcoin out of it. It's just now no longer secure and it's been tampered with.
Yes.
Is that fair?
That is entirely correct.
One more, and then we'll get ready.
Thank you. I'm glad that I got to be one of the question askers. Not often I get a chance to talk to a PhD candidate in cryptocurrency, so this edge question, in your studies, do you deal with how to make that treasured wallet of yours in your pocket protected from electronics, EMPs? All of a sudden the government decides to make you poor and your wallet doesn't work anymore. How do we protect against that?
That's an interesting question. So the coin itself, just like the silver, nothing would affect the coin. There's nothing that anyone can do that makes the coin not exist. Just like the silver is not gonna evaporate. Now, it's same with the private key. As long as that private key is under that hologram that is unpeeled, no one is getting that. It exists only here and nowhere else, and so on and so forth. Now, if you were to shut off the internet, that would make it difficult for me to redeem that because I would need other computers to confirm where that Bitcoin is.
Can you get Bitcoin in China right now? Can you cash it in?
Well, I think there's a couple comments here. I'm going to be out actually after this, and I'll be taking questions all evening and tomorrow. Yes, if the internet turned off, Bitcoin wouldn't work. Could you turn the internet back on and make it work again? I believe so, yes. And someone said, can you use Bitcoin in China? You can use Bitcoin everywhere. There's even been transactions in and out of North Korea. It's actually one of the things they use to bypass sanctions, and there's been interesting things happening there. Whether or not it's legal in any given place is another question entirely. But fundamentally, as a technology, it knows no borders. But I think that's the time we have. And it was a pleasure to be here, and I'll be available for more questions later.